You didn't sip that. You just went crazy on that.
Sipping?
No, we don't sip.
And I just want to say thank you to Lila, who sent me this lovely bottle of Elijah Craig, who are not yet sponsors.
But hey, Elijah Craig, are you listening?
And I'm taking my cues because I just watched the Pod Save America or whatever the shit name it is, but they run their ads like constantly. Like they're like, yeah, and Bill Clinton, and let me talk to you about almonds. Let's talk about almonds.
And it's like a 15-minute segment. From that to some like security system to some other, like it just never ends.
It's so disingenuous. Anyway, let's run the graphic about Pod Save America.
We watched it.
Oh, so we watched it, so you don't have to. And we're back. Holy shit.
Painful. Grab your liquor, gather around.
And can I just say, to be honest, like they weren't even that offensive. Like they were not like, this is something they're allowed to do, just like MSNBC. Like this is sort of the off season where you can be neutral. There's no election coming up.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. They don't have to go to bat they don't have to tell you that Bernie's a Nazi or whatever.
Right.
You know, they don't have to do that for like 2 years. Well, a year now.
Yeah.
But they had their moments, and I picked out their propaganda. So,
all right. Well, you want to start? Go ahead. You start, and okay. Now you're going back to beer. Beer before liquor, never sicker. I'm joking. I'm trying to remember.
Don't make me finish that joke. There's so many lines I can complete that with.
Okay, I just have to say, and then we're going to get into it. But last week, I think you and I learned a little bit from our first episode, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed heavily. I overenjoyed. I was overserved. And I decided that instead of having 6 glasses of wine in 2.5 hours, this time I'm going to try and cram it all into 90 minutes, but I don't know how much wine I'm going to have.
I think you should have all 6 glasses. Uh-huh. And then the last 10 minutes, I think we just edit it down to the whole show is the last 10 minutes of you and I like pointing and raging at people.
And just vomit like spilling out of my mouth.
Yeah, just rage, and I'll bleep everything. It'll be bleep, bleep. It'll be amazing.
It was crazy for me to watch what my family endures every night and to see it on tape and like, oh wow, I was so fun for like the first hour, and then it just gets like angrier and nastier and slurrier.
I think I started slurry and then just went from there, but that's fine. That's fine. I want to set the tone that we don't really like. No one should take us seriously. I mean, you should take us seriously and listen to us or whatever. Who cares? But like, if I say one random thing, you should not think I'm some special person with some magical view. Like, podcasters are just podcasters, but like, follow a lot of people. Don't follow CNN. Don't follow MSNBC. Do your own research.
Right.
You know, like I'm not spinning propaganda.
Right.
Lila and I will both vouch that we don't take money from any group.
Unfortunately, from no one. We are self-funded.
I would love Elijah Craig, my favorite whiskey, bourbon.
My Noble Vineyards.
My favorite bourbon. And hey, New Glory's local beer.
Right down the block.
But no one is paying me. I mean, maybe Lila's being paid. I don't know.
Yeah.
She's a little sus, to be honest.
I'm so sus. Although I didn't write some tweet that was like, I don't believe in hanging out with Nazis, but.
I mean, when I get done with you on Twitter, you will have written that tweet.
Oh, I can
Photoshop like a maniac. Like,
you and your graphics. Shit. All right, so let's go because we did endure this for all of you.
Okay.
You're welcome very much.
I took notes.
All right, I can't wait to hear. Go ahead. I'm going to let you start.
So my first note is the ads are mixed in like they're the show. Like the transition from the ads to the show is like I said, hey, Nancy Pelosi isn't the worst person on earth. And almond milk is great for your body, or something like.
Yeah, seamless.
Yeah. And they made a casual joke, which was right in the beginning about, so this is subtle, but they were making a joke about somehow it got to Batman and Bruce Wayne. I don't even know what the joke was. I would have hit rewind, but like, holy fuck, 72 minutes of this show. I'm not rewinding.
Wait, was it the oral sex joke?
Was there an oral sex joke?
No, I don't know, because that was all I know about Batman this past week is that they said he can't do oral sex.
Oh, maybe I missed all this.
What was the
they
joke?
Were like, well, no, they were like, haha, defund Bruce Wayne.
Oh, God.
Does that make sense? Does that?
No,
I don't know.
They should have done an oral sex joke.
But it's a little knock on defund. It's like, it's small. I don't want to. I'm not making them gross. Like oral sex is gross. I got it, lad.
No, shut up. My God, you just did to me what they did to you with the boogaloos. No.
But
oral sex is for superheroes. But DC said that you can't have Batman performing oral sex. That happened last week. They cut a scene where Batman was supposed to be performing oral sex. Okay, so that became a joke.
Cartoon oral sex.
Yeah, it was the Saturday morning cartoon.
Saturday morning, like
but so that was like a big joke last week. So if you're gonna make a joke about Batman, you make a joke about that. You don't make a joke about defund the police. Like Batman's a billionaire.
Yeah, so that joke pivoted to defund the police.
Of course it did with them.
But it's like I could see us making that joke in their defense. I'm not trying to defend them, but it's just.
Oh, I'm not trying to defend them, but that's going to be that's what I'm going to be.
I literally said in their defense, but I'm not trying to defend them.
If I had any graphic ability, you'd be done. You'd be canceled.
I might just kill myself on this.
You love the podcast.
I might put the graphics up and just.
You love the podcast, guys. Admit it.
No, I mean, it was pretty awful, but I had a hard time finding like terrible things to disagree with them on. So here's one of them.
Okay.
So when they got to the military story we were talking about with General
Mark Milley,
who the hell knows?
Yeah.
So their guest, which was Sam Sanders, not a cousin of Bernie, unfortunately.
I thought when I saw Sanders, I was like, we got to watch this one because I'm going to hate them even more because of how they're going to be like really, like unctuous and gross. And instead it wasn't even him. And so, yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Sam Sanders.
No. So they made the argument. He made the argument. I believe. I could be wrong. I don't want to get canceled. One of them made the argument, but I think it was Sam. Sketchy dude. No, I don't know. I don't know anything about Sam's history. I know the history about the podcasters because they all were Obama interns or whatever's for Obama.
Writers. Oh yeah.
Like
they were major players in his administration.
Right. And that is a resume, like that's their resume. And they put it out there proudly. And God save America or whatever. I don't know. So anyway, what they said was that what he said was that the military was ahead of the rest of the country in social issues. And right. I mean, so it was a both sides thing, sort of like he was like.
They've conflated two separate issues, which was the military employs, I think, a third people of color, a third, I don't know what the other third. Yeah.
So while you're on that topic, this was the thing that stood out to me as the biggest bullshit.
Yeah.
This was the selling point of the military, essentially. This was their starting, like, blam, the military is not bad.
Right.
Point. They're the largest employees of trans people.
Right. And people of color. So that was both. It was both. It was trans people, people of color. Like, they went all out on all of it, all of the identity politics.
Yeah. So the worst thing on earth, just because you give people jobs, is not like a benefit. Like, it's not.
Doesn't mean that you're super woke.
That's not a proud thing. That's not woke. Yeah. That's.
These are people who are usually on the lower economic spectrum, who are desperate for healthcare, education, and the military is the biggest provider of that, because we keep our people so subjugated in this country that we don't have Medicare for all. We don't have free public college. And so the biggest employer of people who are kept desperate is the military, who goes off and fights wars for the 1% and the oil companies. I mean, we all know that that's actually what the whole pyramid is, but they made it sound like the military is some fantastic place for people of color and marginalized communities and poor Americans to be. That's not like, it's not a cause and effect. It is just two congruent facts. And actually, the cause and effect is that because our government has denied our people so many social services and welfare programs, we are forcing people to enlist in a military that has not fought for our freedom or for anybody's freedom, arguably since 1944.
Yeah. And so we're in the position where, I mean, obviously the military has done some terrible things. And the problem is, when you sign up with the military, you sign up for whatever terrible thing they have in mind. So I will never fault anyone who goes in the military, anyone who, like I'm a support your troops guy, regardless of that, because in the end, I think we need a military. So I'm not going to fault people, like it's naive, in my opinion, to think we don't need a military.
Right. So
we need a military. So I'm pro the existence of the military. So this gets complex and complicated, but like, I don't want to fault the people individually who are in the military, because obviously, in my opinion, we need them to exist. But you are at the whim of these terrible decisions and these people that put your life on the line for capital, for, to try to secure resources around the world, for economic hitmen that come over and want to overthrow a dictator so that we can put that country under our whim to get their oil, if you're Venezuela or, whatever. But I had a point before this, but who cares? But
okay, so I'm going to take us back. So what we're talking about was their proposition was that the military is somehow some, pro-justice, equal opportunity, progressive institution, as opposed to the fact that it happens to have all of these poor people, people of color, marginalized communities, because those same communities have been systematically subjugated by our politics and our government in order to give them so few opportunities that the military then seems like something that is somehow, oh my God, Pat, that somehow like it's calling, like it's a better opportunity for them than any other thing that exists, and that is by design.
Which could even be the case, which is awful. Like, that's the whole point, is that if you're stuck and you feel like your option is the military, like that's I love the idea of a public service by choice, of like, that gives so many people a heads up in life. If you can do something in public service and build a resume, but it's you can go there, you can work for the social services, that's great. But
build houses,
but we don't have that. We have, like, you can go to the military,
right. Yeah.
But so on the military line, like the
how's the Elijah?
No, I blame that shot of bourbon.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a lot.
No, actually, it could not have kicked in this soon. So I'm not blaming that. I'm blaming my own brain farts. But the one thing that the show was trying to do, or that they brought up, I'm not going to say this is some overriding plan or narrative, but they did say it, is that they made the case that, and this is a propaganda technique. They're like, okay, and they laid out, well, the military has been bad in the past on race and issues, but this new guy, Miles, is that his name? Miles or
Millie.
This new guy, Millie, he wants more funding so that we can eradicate the racism. You know, they made that sort of case, like they're bad, but this guy's good. And, you know, so acknowledging, and this is where the propaganda comes in. It's like, okay, are you going to hold them to account? Like, you're acknowledging that there was a problem. You're saying this guy's sort of good. It's sort of telling people to go to sleep. Like this is all safe and covered, which is ultimately the whole plan of their whole podcast. Like, they all are insider establishment folks pushing an establishment narrative.
Right.
So the idea is like, okay, trust him, trust the plan, trust that he's not bad. They're going to reform it. And he's going to ask for more money to make the military less racist. And are you against? Lila? Are you against more money if it makes the military more racist, less racist, exactly. Less racist?
More money for the military, more money for police, right?
Yeah,
more surveillance of our own national, our citizens.
And that was ultimately Biden's plan. Not plan, but his solution to all the uproar in the street about Black Lives Matter. We were all screaming, defund, but he's giving extra funding.
Yeah.
Like, we were saying defund. He's like, no, let's give him more money and we'll train him in programs.
And part of what liberals and the pod save guys are saying is isn't that so funny? It's actually Republicans who are against funding the military and funding the police. And here's the thing. There is we need to have a healthy skepticism towards these huge establishment projects, right? We should not be just sort of unquestionably funding police and our military and all of these, the surveillance program. That is not who we should be. And that is not who liberals, who I mean, now liberal for me has become sort of a dirty word, but years ago, liberal was what I considered myself. I'm now a leftist, whatever. The terminology changes, but our group, our side used to have a lot of skepticism for these government agencies. And now the whole, it's like the whole Russiagate thing. They are all in for the FBI and the CIA and the police. And that should trouble everybody. And as you said, there shouldn't be trust. None of this should be blind trust. We should be constantly trying to just peel back the narratives to see what the truth is underneath. And that the fact that liberals are now sort of swallowing that a general is some woke, identity politics guy is ridiculous. And the aim is to put us all back to sleep a little bit.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. The next thing I'm going to bring up, because this, again, so much of what my problem with them is, well, first of all, I'm always just going to kind of despise anybody who went so hard against Bernie or who didn't go all in for Bernie when he really had a shot of winning. So I find them all repulsive, and they're all allied with Obama and all that kind of stuff. But they talk a lot about the big lie and Republicans and the insurrection on January 6th and how Republicans are against democracy. And I agree. Yes, all of that is true. But and Fox News. But there's no self-awareness. There's never any discussion about how the DNC held the primaries, how the Democrats sued to get the Green Party off the ballot, how Russiagate was the biggest lie and attempt to undermine a democratically elected president whom I loathe. But then again, I wasn't Hillary and her posse who propped him up and like conspired with, you know, MSNBC to show only his empty podiums, like while Bernie was playing to thousands, or tens of thousands. So like the fact that they never bring that part in, they're just, I mean, of course, I know they're only operating on one side, but it just makes them the betrayal, because I thought, you know, it's like what happened with you and the whole Medicare, or the March for Medicare for All, the betrayal of people who I had thought were on my side, and to see what they did when we were so close with somebody who I think could have affected so much change. And then they're going to call out those exact same tactics on the right. I just feel like, I don't care. Like, you guys they're all in the same boat to me now. Anyway, yeah. So I think the thing that is eternally frustrating to me about the Pod Save guys and all of the liberal establishment is that they are very good at pointing out the either hypocrisy or anti-democratic nature of the right, which I agree with. Like, you know, we all agree with that. But when it comes to some introspection or self-awareness, they don't talk about MSNBC. They don't talk about the absolute failure of every part of Russiagate, honestly, or the anti-democratic nature of the DNC. And so what that leaves me with is like a total distrust of people who I thought for a while we were on the same side of. And now I realize it's all just done, as you said earlier, just to put everybody to sleep.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with the Pod Saves podcast, which is it's the same thing as Rachel Maddow. It's the same thing as a lot of the stuff you'll see on MSNBC. So they're all allowed for a while to critique the progressive wing a little bit, and everything they say about the right, like, it's generally true. Like, the right's a bunch of shitbags. So they build trust in that way. So they build trust, and if you're a normie Dem, even if you have progressive beliefs, especially actually if you have progressive beliefs, you are their demographic. Yeah. They would love you to be their listener, because the goal is to build your trust, to earn your trust, because you hear them occasionally sort of saying pro-Bernie things, attacking the establishment. You'll hear them fake attack the establishment. And so they'll earn your trust. And then 2 years from now, when it's time to vote, they will they will use that trust that they have earned with you to lie to you, to propagandize you against, I totally trust the Pod Save guys. They're really anti Nancy Pelosi's new whatever. They're whatever.
Right.
And then, but they're telling me, God damn it, if we don't vote for Biden, fucking Trump is our president. So I agree with Bernie, all this stuff, like they do.
Right.
But
you guys
if we don't vote for Biden, it's all over, and this country will fall into fascism.
Yeah. It's really striking. And I mean, I think they're just counting on two things. One is most people being propagandized and just like kind of marching along. And then also just not having the time. Like, who has the time to get into the weeds of all of this stuff? But when you look at so much of what Biden's done since he's come into power, he's kind of just reinforcing most of what Trump did. I mean, there's very little that he has pushed back on. There were a couple of pipelines, but then he okayed a bunch of them. He and his Justice Department are supporting Trump. They're defending Trump on 3 or 4 different lawsuits. We know the kids are still in cages. We're telling people not to come from Central Latin America, right? Like, all of these things that were so horrific a year ago are all of a sudden not. Our CDC is a disaster, right? So,
and some of these things were pledged in the damn campaign that would happen in the first 100 days, and they are within his power as an executive to pass an executive order. And he hasn't done them. I mean, what's the excuse for that? There is no excuse for that.
What do you want him to do? The Congress is split 50-50. It's
not on executive orders.
Cinema and there's always a reason. There is always a reason provided. And once you decide, hey, maybe Democrats aren't the good guys, and maybe they're all being paid by the same people, and you see it through that lens, then anybody justifying any of it, it's ridiculous. Like, people are still talking about, like, how do we convince Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema to change? It's like, are we still doing this? Like, it's so embarrassing. We did this with Joe Lieberman 11 years ago. We're going to do it with, I mean,
the only way, so the argument should be, how do we convince the Democratic Party at large to not accept their bullshit?
Right.
Because they are enablers of the bullshit. That's not even the right word. They want that bullshit because that bullshit their donors demand.
Yeah.
Their donors demand that they don't actually pass this stuff. So how do we change the whole party to where they know all of them will lose their elections if they don't support these things, which they will never, it's not going to happen. We don't have that media power.
Yeah, we don't have the media power. Yeah.
That's where we need to be.
It is. And so what that means, it's the whole like harm reduction and withholding your vote. And Brianna Joy Gray spoke about it, I think, the most eloquently and vociferously for such a long time leading up to Joe Biden's election, which was like, how do we leverage this time? And we didn't do it.